Hello, hello everyone. Hi, hello. So today I'll be giving you a session on JavaScript fundamentals. So let me introduce myself. My name is Jyotirmoy Dev. I have a bachelor's and master's in computer science, and I have almost 12 years of experience in the IT industry, and also for last 2 years I've been associated with the e-learning platforms where I have been delivering online classes on programming, mainly on JavaScript, artificial intelligence, virtual reality, Python, etc. So today I'm going to talk something about JavaScript and JavaScript fundamentals. So let's start. What is JavaScript? So JavaScript was first introduced in the year 1995, and it came with a browser called Netscape Navigator. So some of you must have heard of it, and if you haven't, please search in Google what is Netscape Navigator. It was probably one of the initial browsers back then, and JavaScript came as an inbuilt program with it. Now, today, there is a huge demand of JavaScript in the IT industry. In every web development projects you see, there is a usage of JavaScript in a very high volume. So how come JavaScript was so popular? So there is a little story about the naming of JavaScript. So initially, when JavaScript was invented by the person who actually created JavaScript, he did not know what name to keep. But back then, at that time, Java was very popular. Java was kind of ruling the market. So what he did, he gave the name using the popularity of Java, and he named it JavaScript. So since then, JavaScript automatically got a lot of focus, and it came to the limelight. But stories aside, let's talk about something else. So the sometimes if you are learning JavaScript, you must have heard about this term called ECMA or ECMA or ECMA script. So what is an ECMA script, and what is the difference between ECMA and JavaScript? So basically, JavaScript was invented, as I said, in the year 1995, and since then it has undergone a lot of developments. But ECMA is an organization who actually first make JavaScript as an official language. So ECMA is basically a language specification unit, and JavaScript itself is a independent programming language. So every year or every time, whenever JavaScript goes through any changes or something new programming development is added to JavaScript, that has been approved by ECMA. Okay, so that is the difference between ECMA and JavaScript. Now, in today's world, you can see that we are using a lot of different frameworks which are built on top of JavaScript. So one is Angular, one is React.js, there is jQuery, then there is Vue.js, then there is Ember.js, and etc. and etc. So there are a lot of JavaScript libraries which are built on top of the raw JavaScript, and these basically what this does is they basically come up with a lot of methods and functions which makes the programmer's life easy and reduce the amount of writing code. So there are some ready-made codes or programs already available within those libraries. Now next, we will talk about what are the different elements of JavaScript. Okay, so as I said, JavaScript is one of the most important programming languages today. It is as popular as Python, or I will say it is more popular than Python in the world of programmers and software development. So I will talk about some very basic, some of the important characteristics of JavaScript. Okay, so first I will talk about what is comments in JavaScript. So how do you comment line in a JavaScript. So I will show you through live examples. I will write codes on an editor. It's a very popular editor. It is called REPL IT. So you can go to the Google and search for replit.com, REPLIT, Replit or replit.com. So okay, so now I come to the Google. I will search for REPLIT. Okay, and this is the platform where I'm going to basically create a JavaScript code. So first I'll click on the Node.js, and I will click on demo project. You can give any name, whatever you like, and then you click on the create ripple button, this blue color create ripple button. Okay, so once you click on the create ripple button, and editor interface will be created for you where you can write the code. So let's say whenever I write any JavaScript, let's say console.log, and this is the, let's say, the first program in JavaScript that is going to say hello world. So now if you run this, it is going to print hello world here. So now what is comments? So comments means basically like how do you make the other persons understand what you are writing. So these are basically when you write a code, you let the other person know what you are writing. So for that you can give like there are two, three different ways to give. Once is this and this, displaying hello world. Okay, and then you, so from this is the way you can make some comments, like you basically tell other people or other programmers who are actually looking at your code, they can understand what this code is doing. Okay, the another way you can write comment is you can just give forward backslash and you can give displaying hello world. Okay, so these are the two ways you can give comments. Then if you want to make this code inactive, then also you can give this thing. So now this code will not work. So this is another way of doing comments, the active code. Okay, so we can come back to the next part of JavaScript, which is variables in JavaScript. So friends, what is a variable in any programming language? So variable is basically a place or a container, okay, where we can store value. So every variable has a name. Okay, so variable is a place or a container where we can store value. So when we write any program, we need to declare a lot of variables because we need to store a lot of values, and further we need to work with those variables. So JavaScript provides a very efficient way to declare variables. So there are three ways we can declare variables. One is, let's say, var. So you can say var and data. So data is the name of the variable, and then you can store some value, basically like test data you can give. So this is a variable. This is how we can declare variable. Now if I want to print this, I can give console.log, and if I print data, this variable will get printed. Okay, so now if I run this code, I can see the value of the data. There is another way we can print variable is let. There is a keyword called let. It has been introduced by ECMA in the JavaScript language recently, I think in the year of 2015 or 2016, somewhere around that. And that's how also we can create a variable. You let data1 equals to test data2. So now if I also print it, then it will also sorry, I have to provide the name of the variable, and then if I run it, it will print test data2. Okay, there is another one which is called constant, const. It means this is a variable, the value of which will never change in the entire program. So for var and for let we can change the value, but for constant it will always be the same. So but for constant we have to declare with a capital word. That is kind of like a rule of programming. So I can say data3, okay, and then I can give test data3, and then if I want to print the value, I can print it. Okay, so test data3. Now if you want to change the value, let's say if you give data3 equals to something else, and then you want to print the value, then you will probably get an error. See, it is giving an error because it is saying assignments to constant variables is not possible. So once you declared a variable as a constant, you cannot change the value. So these two lines, line number 18, is actually wrong. Now next, come back to the next elements in JavaScript. So now we will talk about something called string concatenation. So basically there are lots of inbuilt functions and methods in JavaScript. We cannot talk about all of them in this short time of demo, but I would like to mention what is a string concatenation. So string concatenation is basically combining the value of two string variables into one. So they don't basically change the existing strings, but they basically combines them. So how does that happen? So here, let's say I'll delete all of them, and I can create comments as string concatenation. Okay, and I can create a string, a variable str1 equals to hello. Okay, and then I create another string 2 equals to hello world. Okay, now concatenation means basically combining. So I will use the method concat. So what I'm going to do, I'll create another variable which will be result, which will actually concatenate these two strings. So str1 dot concat, and then inside I will give str2. Now if I print this value of the result, see, you get hello world. Okay, so this is basically the concept of string concatenation. So now next come to what is a function in JavaScript. So function is, I will say, the most important, or I will say one of the most important aspects of JavaScript. Not in JavaScript, but in any program. So what is a function? So in general, a function is basically, it's a set of instructions. When executed or when called, they do a specific task. So let's say I have a servant in my house and I want him to bring a packet of sweet. Okay, so what I'm gonna say, I will call my servant and I will give him 100 rupees, and I can say, hey, can you bring a pack of sweet? So he will go to the sweet shop, he will buy the sweet, and he will come back and give it back to me. So function is something similar to that. Function basically helps the programmer to do some specific task, and functions are reusable code which can call the function in anywhere in the program when we need them. So we don't have to write again and again the same code. So it basically reduces the code redundancy, and it always returns a value, and function can take some input parameters. Okay, so I will explain you through some live uh, code in Ripple IT how can we create a function. So let's come back and say I want to create a function. So when do you want to create a function? Okay, the first thing is we have to use a keyword. So there is something called a keyword. So keyword means as I said, var, let, constant, console.log, these are predefined words in a programming language, and the compiler of that program can understand. So the keyword to declare a function is function, function, and followed by the name. Let's say I am giving a name of test function, and then I have to give opening round bracket and closing round bracket, and then I have to give opening curly bracket and closing curly bracket. So this is a very standard way of declaring a function. There are other ways to create functions. I will discuss it later. There are different types of functions in JavaScript. We cannot cover all of them, but I'm just giving a basic understanding of what is function. So this is the basic way to declare a function. First, the function keyword, then the function name, which can be anything. I have given test function, then opening round bracket, closing round bracket, then opening curly bracket, closing curly bracket. Then I can press an enter, and I can say console.log, and I can print hello world. So now if I run the code, I am expecting to see basically hello world, but I don't see anything. Why? Because I have only declared the function. Okay, now I have to, so this is, I have to declare a function, and now I have to actually call the function. Okay, so here I have to call the function by its name, as we call any person by their name. So test function. So unless and until I call the function will not be executed. So now I click on the run, and once I click on the run, see, I can get the output of hello world. So function is a very important part in JavaScript, and as I said, function can return value, and function can have parameters. So how can I use that characteristics of a function? So let's say I want to add two numbers. Okay, so function for addition of two numbers. So what should I do? I will create a function with a name add. So function add, okay, and this will add two numbers. So I can use, there is something called a return statement. Return, let's say two numbers. I create two variables. Let's say inside the function I can create variable. Let's say, or I can say return A plus B. Okay, so when I call the function, let's say if I just call the function, it's not going to do anything because I have not given any parameters. So I have to pass parameters, I'd say I want to get the addition of two numbers 6 and 7, and 6 and 7 I have to pass here. So how will I pass them? So I have to give them as a parameters, so a comma b. So when I do that, what will happen is this value 6 will be automatically assigned to this value a, and this 7 will be automatically assigned to this value b, and it will return an addition of a plus b, where a is holding the value 6 and b is holding the value 7. So I will get a output of 13. So let's try this. See, I'm getting, the function is returning a value of 13. Why it is coming in red color? Because it's a return type, it's a return value. So if I put it as a console, and if I run it now, oops, console, I made, I just wrong, console.log. So now if I run it, I get 13. Okay, so this is basically how a function with parameters work. So we can declare a function with parameter or without parameters based on our requirement. Okay, so now we can this is the fundamentals of function. Now there is a variations of functions. Okay, this is like function as a variable. We can declare function as a variable as well. Okay, for example, variable test function equals to function. So in this case we don't give a name in between the function and the round brackets, but it will come like this. So console dot log hello world, and if I or let's say I give return, let's say return 5. Okay, I'm returning just a value 5. Now the entire functionality has been assigned to a variable called test function. So now if I want to print the value 5, I will go console dot log and I will give test function the same way I was printing variables. Okay, so now if I run this code, test function, okay, I have to give this one. Alright, yes, so now it is printing 5. So function can also be used as a variable. Now next thing is there is something called arrow function. So arrow function is very important because this property has been implemented recently by the ECMA, I think by in 2015 or 16. So this concept of arrow function, this is also like the same way okay. So for that I don't need to give like the variable, but I can just directly give the name, let's say test function, and I can create an arrow like this, and I don't even writing the function keyword, and I can give like hello world. So this is called an arrow function because I am using this keyword arrow, and if I call this function, let's say console dot log test function, it is probably going to return hello world, right? So this is the new addition to JavaScript by ECMA. So that is some basic fundamentals of function, uh, and we will talk about more about functions when in the actual course. So let's move on to the other stuff. Then there is something called operators. Okay, so operators, what is operators? Operator means if you want to perform some special kind of operations, let's say I want to add numbers, two numbers, and I want to subtract numbers, I want to divide two numbers, I want to multiply two numbers. So these are called arithmetic operators. There are also other kind of operators like logical operators. Then there are different types of operators which are available in JavaScript. So let's I will show you some example about operators. Let's say I have created one variable a which has a value 15. Okay, and then I have created another variable b which has a value of 20. So if I want to perform some operations, okay, I will use, let's say, a plus b, as I already said, for addition. So this plus is an operator. Okay, this is an operator, this is addition operators. Then there is a minus b. Okay, then there is a by b, a multiplied by b, and there is a divided by b. So if I print this, you will get all different values because these operators have been used on these variables. There are also something called logical operators. For example, logical operators are basically used when we are using conditional statements. Okay, so we will see the use of logical operators in the next articles. So this is conditional statement. So what is conditional statements in JavaScript? Okay,